Welcome back, everybody, to the Slow Pitch, and welcome, Lane. Lane, how are you doing over there?
I'm doing fantastic, Rob. How are you?
I'm doing well. Guess what we're talking about today?
What are we talking about today, Rob?
Well, today we are talking about buyer apathy, and just when people just are really just don't seem to want to buy. Like they're just like, maybe I should buy, maybe I shouldn't buy. I don't know, but we have a guest on our show this week, and we're going to be able to talk about that. What do you think?
I think that sounds great.
All right, well, let's get started.
You're listening to the Slow Pitch Podcast, a podcast about selling less and closing more.
All right, so this week we are going to talk a little bit about prospect or buyer apathy. And I think, Lane, have you ever had it where somebody kind of looks at your product or looks at your service and says, I don't know if I'm ready to buy yet, or they just kind of slow things down or just stall out, or you ever have that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's no fun.
No. And it happens with the best of us, and it happens with all of us. We all have that. So this week we have a guest that's joining us. His name is Bernie. Bernie, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. And so what we want to do is Bernie's got a question or a couple of questions that come up, and we're going to have a little bit of a discussion and see how this works out. Obviously, this is the first we've done this. We've usually taken questions in the written format, but after we've had a little bit of conversation, determined maybe this is a slightly more complex situation. So we want to talk about it, see if we can have a little better conversation, and let's see how this goes. So if you're out there listening and you like this format, maybe you have a question, maybe you want to join us, we're happy to talk to you, see if we can do that. But in the meantime, Bernie, can you give us a little bit of a background as to first of all, what this is about? So I know you do one part of the piece of this. Give me a little high level. What is this all about?
Well, I'm working with them on some digital stuff to augment their sales process. And so we actually talk about the sales process.
Gotcha.
That's where I heard some complaints about buyer apathy. And then I thought about it for a while, and I really started to wonder, how do you alter the sales process to counter the fact that maybe sometimes the buyer can't very easily see the benefit in switching providers?
Gotcha. Okay. So let's kind of give listeners a kind of a feel for what the product or service that they're selling. So if you kind of give us a high level of what that's like, what's it kind of relative to? If we don't want to share who that is, what is it like?
Yeah, it's a business service. It's similar to Rocket Lawyer.
So Rocket Lawyer is you can buy the services. You can log on their website and say, hey, I want to just talk to a lawyer. And depending on the type of membership you have, you can pay a certain fee. You can a monthly fee or a certain amount of time, or just a flat fee, depending on what you're doing. It might cost you something extra because you're not paying the top tier, let's say, right? So there's different add-ons. Is that kind of what you're saying? It kind of like they have a flat fee for certain things and then add on. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it's a flat fee plus, a la carte stuff.
Okay. When you say that you get to have these conversations with them about sales, the issue is that people are slow to buy, but what's the sense that you have that they're slow to buy? Why are they making it take so long, or why are they not buying? Have you guys had any of that conversation? And what are they saying?
He thinks they've got a kind of inertia. They've already got a provider. It's a pain to switch providers, even if they could see a little bit of a benefit from changing. It's not like a huge dollar amount in their budget. And so, I just got to thinking there must be a way that the sales process has to adapt when you've got, a buyer who perceives that the stakes are maybe too low for their attention.
So I think what I'm hearing you say then is that unless they're having a problem where they are with that service, why would they switch?
Yeah, well, I know why, because I understand what's better about my client's product, but they don't know why.
They don't understand why. So is that a website messaging issue? Is that a sales process issue? In other words, if the clients come in or potential customers come in and they come in through the website, that's one thing. They have to make a decision to buy or not buy, right?
Yeah,
But is this a problem where is there outgoing calls from that company who are saying they're running into problems when they look at it and they go through their presentation or their information that they're having a hard time people pulling a trigger?
that's what it is. It's outgoing calls.
When you talk about the outgoing calls, the people that are on the phone, how much information does the call receiver have before they get this phone call? In other words, I'm sitting at my desk, this company calls. Am I expecting their call, or are they just totally cold?
I think the first call is totally cold.
All right.
And I think the first call sets up another call, maybe.
Okay. And the price point on each of these sales calls is anywhere from, let's say, low end to high end. What?
It's a service that gets used sporadically, so it adds up. The bigger you are, the more it adds up. But
So the more that somebody might need it, that number can get really big fast. Or if it's not something they need very often, it's just be a low number and it doesn't really cost very much and they just
Yeah.
work through it. Okay. When they're making their outbound calls, have you listened into those calls? Have you been able to hear some of the conversations that they're having with people?
no,
Okay. Lane, I have some additional questions, but I before I get too far, and I just peppered Bernie with a bunch of questions. And I mean, like, it's like I smell pepper.
What do you
everywhere.
mean? What do you
my
mean?
eyes are burning.
Yeah, your eyes are burning. So maybe your nose is burning a little bit too because you've been peppered so much. But Lane, what do you got for questions? Because I want to make sure that we get everything we need to make sure we're able to answer that question.
Well, I find it interesting that they're making these cold calls and they come away from these cold calls basically believing the client doesn't understand the benefits of their service over competitors. And so, I mean, that really makes me think, what is the message being passed in these cold calls that they're not able to clearly lay out the benefits of their service to their clients or to the prospects?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Bernie, what do you got? What do you think? Do you think that's part of the issue? Let me rephrase that. Do you think it's part of the messaging that's in that script? I'm assuming they're scripted because most of the time the outbound calls are scripted. If they're scripted or if they're not scripted, either way, do you think some of the messaging that's in there is very cold call-y, if you will? I don't know how to word it that way, any better way, but like, does it feel like, hey, dude, you got to call it, you got to buy this today because, that kind of feel, or is this more of like, hey, is this a problem for you? And did you know there's a service out there that'll help you? Or do you guys already have a service that does this? That kind of question.
I haven't the slightest idea what the
Do you know if they are talking to just the average person in the department they're focusing their services towards, or are they trying to talk to like a VP level or a C-suite level individual?
they're doing what you would do in a sales process. Their first call would be to try to establish who is the decision maker, I assume.
Okay.
And then they make sure they get on a call later with that person.
I think one of the other questions we haven't asked yet either is size of the company, meaning the size of the target audience, I should say. So what size companies are they calling? Are these mom and pops? Are these like, imagine a small restaurant? Are these like small offices where there's 10, 15 people there? Or are we talking like hundreds of people or thousands of people? Who are they after?
It would be hundreds of people or thousands of people.
Hundreds or thousands. So
yeah.
Decent sized companies. So it can get a little bit dicey on how you connect to on the phone. And then they've got to navigate through that. I call it the phone tree, but it's like they got to navigate to the right people, right?
Yeah. More a labyrinth than a tree.
Yeah. Yes. And I'm wondering whether or not they have a database that is very accurate, meaning that they know who the president is or the CEO or the vice president of whatever department they need to speak to. So if they need to speak to vice president, let's say it's like Rocket Lawyer. What if they just called up and said, hey, I need to talk to the VP of the legal department? And would that be the right person? And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But if nothing else, you're at least getting in the right department in the right area, right? So the first question I would ask is, who are they calling? So in your conversations with them, the next time I might ask the question, by the way, who are you guys calling? Because if you're calling the wrong client, then or the wrong department or the wrong layer, then that might be the wrong thing. Let me give you an example. A while back, I had a problem with something that was happening outside of our business. And I did not know what to do about it. There was nothing I could do. Like, there was the people that were out there, the things that were happening, all the different elements that were all fitting together. It was something that the landlord couldn't control. It was more of a bigger problem, let's say, right? And so what I ended up doing is I ended up knowing a couple of contacts, and I called somebody that I thought was at the appropriate level in the city. And when I contacted that person at the city, they said, okay, well, there's not much we can do about it. Thank you very much. And I thought, wow, this would seem like this would be something I could do, right? This seems like something that would fit for their area. So I happen to have another contact, which happens to be much higher in the city. And so I called that person and I said, I hate to bother you. This is not something that I wanted to call you on ever. But I'm having this problem. They're like, tell me what's happening. They said, all right, let's have a quick conversation on a call here with this other person that he knew. And so he loops another person into the phone call. That person then says, I got it. I'll take care of it. Well, how come the first guy couldn't take care of it? Well, because it wasn't the right level. And here's the other thing that I've found in cold calls. If you call as high as you possibly can and get away with getting in front of that person, whoever they kick you down to is going to listen to you and is going to listen to them. And that person that they kick you down to, they don't know if you're best friends from high school or if you just talked to them for the first time. So there's a benefit for going as high as you can. So the first question I would ask is, are you calling or are they calling the right target audience? And we don't know the answer to that, but let's assume that that's part of the issue. The second issue that can come up is how to create that messaging that will fit to a problem that person on the other end of that phone is having. So let's do this. Let's have a practice with Lane that Lane can give you a quick 30-second commercial about, let's say he's calling on behalf of Rocket Lawyer and he wants to talk to somebody that's pretty high up. And so Bernie, you're going to be the person receiving the phone call, and Lane, you're going to be the one making the phone call. So
yeah, great.
Let's
Thanks,
play
Rob.
this. Let's play this out. Let's see what happens. Lane, what do you got?
Ring, ring.
Bernie, you have to answer the phone.
Hello.
Hi, is this Bernie?
Yes, it is.
Someone gave me your name and suggested I reach out to you, thinking you might be interested in some legal services. Is this a good time to talk?
Yeah, it's okay.
Well, hey, listen, I don't know what I'm not real sure why these people suggested I reach out to you. I don't know if maybe they just happen to know you and know you might be looking for some different services. We offer some great services that.
All right, so I'm going to cut Lane off a little bit.
Yeah, please, thanks.
All right, no problem. So, hey, Bernie, are you? I'm sorry, I should have introduced myself first, shouldn't I? I mean, you probably want to know who this is.
I know. This is crazy.
Sorry about that. Hi. My name is Rob. I'm with Rocket Lawyer, and we're trying to get a hold of a certain person at your office. I have no idea if you know who this is.
A certain person.
Yeah. Oh, I should probably tell you who that is too. Boy, I'm not very good at this at all. Holy cow! I'm so sorry. I'm looking for of the vice president of the legal department. I don't know if you have. Now, if I knew that person's name, I would use that person's name. So I'm looking for VP of legal. Do you happen to know who that is?
Yeah.
How would I get a hold of that person?
You just call his number. I could give it to you.
You mean right now?
Sure.
I really appreciate that. Go ahead and give it to me. All right. So now I've got his number, right? So that's the first thing. So
you're much nicer than I am.
You know what though? Lane says that, but you don't know how many times that actually works for me. It is incredible how many times that I'm calling and I get the right person on the phone who gives me the right phone number, who then I get to call that person. So I call the vice president of legal. And now, Lane, you're going to be vice president of legal. You're going to be a little more gruff, of course. So the phone rings.
Hello.
Hey, is this Lane?
Yes, it is.
Hey, I just got your name and phone number here from somebody in your office here, and they said you were the right person to talk to about this. Is that?
Who did you talk to? Who do I need to fire?
Well, I know you better than that. I know you're in the legal department. You're probably not going to fire them. I know. I understand. No, I'm just kidding. I listen. They said you were the one I should talk to, and in this conversation, I thought maybe in the conversation that I had with them, I thought maybe I should just reach out and give you a call. Do you have? I don't know if I caught you at a bit. Did I catch you at a bad time?
It could be better. What's going on?
All right, let's get to the point. Sorry about that. So here's the deal. I'm reaching out because I've had several conversations with other companies that are very similar to yours. And in my conversation with the legal department, what I'm finding is they're looking for an alternative to stuff that they're doing already. And a lot of times there's legal things that are happening that don't take a lot of complicated efforts on your end, and it's just like paper pushing and garbage stuff that you just don't feel like doing.
Right.
And so one of the services that we can offer is something that takes care of that problem, just takes it off your plate. So you're dealing with more of the real heavy lifting stuff. Is that something you guys are even thinking about, or have you guys ever thought about saving a little money on your end? Because
Well, I guess it would depend on what kind of money savings we're really talking about here.
well, it can be money, it can be time, and there's a
Well, time is
combination of
money. Yeah.
yeah. So do you want to, because I know you don't have a lot of time, should we schedule a time to grab a little bit more information together and just kind of talk through that? Maybe half an hour. Would that work?
Yeah, I can do that.
All right. So and that's usually how it goes, because they're usually willing to be open. But then the next piece of that is really the messaging that went on through that, which is trying to address what some of their pains are in the questions. And it's not a sales pitch, it's a question about whether or not they have the problem. So I feel like when people say they have a buyer apathy situation going on, typically what I find is that they're trying to push, and sales is really a pull. There's two jobs that I find that are both pull jobs, but people try to make them push jobs. One is sales and the other is management. Both of them really require somebody to pull people along, to come along. Let's go this way. And that's how it works. So in the sales process, they have to have a mentality of, is this person even the right person to follow along and go in the right direction? And if they are, and they're open to have more conversation, let's continue to expand that conversation. So in that conversation that I just had with Lane, my goal was not to sell him. My goal was to find out, is there a problem? And when he says, well, time is money. Yeah, no kidding. Time is money. Let's talk a little bit about that. So if we end up having a little more time and he didn't say, hey, I got 5 minutes, that kind of thing, then I might get into, I know time is money. How much time do you guys think you guys spend on? And then you start asking all these questions. And by having that conversation, what I'm hearing when they hear there's apathy is you're not getting to the pain point fast enough. It's got to, especially for somebody that's higher up. That higher up person usually has a higher D personality, which means they're a dominant personality. The ones that they want answers, they want to move fast and follow me, let's go. So you have to talk to them that way and say, all right, listen, if you're talking about these issues, it's taking time to do this paperwork that doesn't return any of the investment of time. It's just extra stuff that I got to do, or I've got to do X, Y, and Z, and it's just a waste of my time. All right, we're going to solve that problem for you. Yeah, it's going to cost you a little bit in dollars, but you're going to save time. You're not going to be so aggravated. And by asking those questions, you'll know whether or not that's an issue. And once you get to the other side of that, now you know not only how much time they're wasting, how much is that costing them, how much is that affecting that person that you're on the phone with directly, and how much of that is their responsibility to control that. So now I have a vested interest. If I have to control that, I have to control my costs, I have to control my time, their time, everybody else's time. Now it's a vested interest to make sure this is right. What do you got? I want to learn more. Now you're pulling them through the sales process. So that's what I typically hear. I don't know that that's what this company's doing or has the problem with, if you will, but it sounds to me like on their website landing page, if people aren't converting there might be a problem with people understanding that here's the pain you might be having that this then solves, and it has to be subtle. And I think there's nothing wrong with having a video that says that, explains that, or asks those questions. And then in the sales process, when the outgoing calls happen, if they're not getting those questions answered, then they're probably not going to get the sale. And one of the things that Lane and I have talked about this too before, for those of you listening, is if you don't have the pain and you don't have monetary value to that pain, and sometimes time and sometimes effort, energy, everything else that goes along with it, unless you have that, you're never going to get a sale. Then it's time to plant seeds. So when they come up, and those conversations that they're having, they should be then going on and saying, well, listen, you may not have this problem today, but let's pretend you have a problem in 3 months. Would it be helpful to have my contact information so that we could talk again and see if there's a little smaller plan that we can kind of get you started on? And you can test it out, try it, and then off you go. So they're usually interested in something like that. But planting the seeds becomes the biggest and most important step when you know you're not going to get the sale because there's no pain. So do you think that's going to help them at all, Bernie?
Yeah, I think it could.
Good. Lane, did you have anything else you wanted to add, or?
No, I think you really covered it there, because it seems like the prospects don't necessarily understand the pain isn't being pointed out clearly enough so they go, oh yeah, I need your service over what I've already got. So,
Or the problem is they're not feeling the pain.
that's true. That's true. And I know we can't really get into it, but I can understand from, previous conversation where it's hard for them to really feel that pain unless something comes along where someone goes, that's not really me. But then at that point, do you trust the applicant or do you trust the service provider? And that's tough.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is that when you have a conversation with somebody and you find out that they have no interest because they don't have the problem,
Yeah.
then there's two questions that come up to me. One is, are you asking the right questions to get that pain, truly asking the questions to get that pain out of them? Because sometimes we think we are, but we're not. We're just glazing over stuff and thinking we're reading their minds. We think that they actually are telling us what we want to hear. And it's really not the right thing. And that sometimes happens. But then on the other side of that is the next question. And again, I'm not suggesting this for this client per se, but sometimes you have to ask the question, is this product even needed, necessary? Is there a problem that they're saying, well, this is not an issue? I don't know. Why would I even need this? And it's such a small audience that you might be able to get some sales out of it, but is it going to cover the monthly bill that needs to happen? And sometimes that's the case. But really, 9 times out of 10, it's about getting the right questions asked so that you know whether or not they have pain. And if you don't get anybody to have pain ever, verify that you have the right questions being asked, verify that that's all correct. And if you're getting all the pain you need and nobody still wants to buy, then there might be some other issues going on too. But for now, I think I would wrap it up with just saying one simple thing, and that is every message that goes out from this company should be pain-based by asking questions. So all the questions that are on the website, all the questions in the sales process, they have to be a lot of questions. Put that person who's buying mentally into pain, basically. Make them feel like, well, here's the problem. And oh my goodness, I hadn't been thinking that this is costing us this much every day or every month or every whatever. So the more you do that, the better. Bernie, you think that helps? Does that help at all? Or
Give it a try.
All right. Sounds good. All right, Lane. Well, I think we've hopefully helped out and hopefully help some other folks that are out there listening.
Yeah, I hope so.
Until next time, we'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Slow Pitch. Do you have a question about sales? Call or text your question at 608-708-SLOW. That's 608-708-7569. Or you can email them to questions@theslowpitch.com. Slow down and close more.
Thanks as always for listening today. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review. We really appreciate it. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Slow Pitch. We were mixed today, as always, by Johnny Polakis, and we were produced by High Gravity Studios. Music credits and other notes are in the show notes section on theslowpitch.com, and we'll be back with another episode soon.